Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Saturday, April 18th, 2020. I am Master Thich Thong Lai. I would like to extend my warmest greetings to my fellow compatriots in the country and abroad. This morning, while driving, I like to spend some time answering some of the unanswered emails. I have been very busy these past few days, so I couldn't answer all of these questions. Today, there is a very special question from a Buddhist follower who is living in the United States. The question is like this. Recently, this Buddhist follower surfed online and saw a few sources saying that the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs demanded people around the world should congratulate Xi Jinping on succeeding in the prevention of the pandemic Coronavirus Wuhan. This Buddhist follower was surprised because Xi Jinping failed to control the plague in Wuhan city. But why did the Chinese government and foreign ministry now ask all race in the world to thank the Chinese Communist Party and Xi Jinping, who has been so successful and brilliant in preventing coronavirus Wuhan? It doesn't make any sense to this disciple. Therefore, ask me to explain with my own opinion. Because of this question, I want to discuss more about this event. Ladies and gentlemen, when a war happens, for example, during World War II, Hitler and the Nazi launched a war against all countries in Europe and the United States. And at the end of the war, millions of people die in this war. And so have the Nazis. But this time, Xi Jinping was successful. Without spending any money, moving his troops, nor weapons, he could cause tens of thousands of deaths since January 21st, 2020. And millions of people around the world are infected. And millions of people in the world will be killed. Yet, Xi Jinping didn't fire a bullet. Chinese Foreign Ministry asked the people around the world to congratulate and celebrate that Xi Jinping successfully controlled the Chinese coronavirus, to send a message to all the Chinese who are living all over the world that China has succeeded in starting a war without spending any cost and damage, while causing the free world has been badly damaged upon the economy and finance. You can see clearly that was the main reason the Ministry of Foreign of China naturally invoked all the people in the world to send greetings to Xi Jinping in succeeding in the prevention of the Chinese coronavirus. You better understand, this is a message that the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs wants to let the world know that Xi Jinping has succeeded in eliminating the people of the free world and the capitalist world. In the eyes of the communists, all the countries with a free regime and capitalist regime are enemies of the Communist Party. The Chinese Party are any other Communist Party in the world, such as Communist Russia or North Korea. They all have the same stance. Their joy is seeing the people of countries in the free world suffer and die. Sometimes you will be surprised about my judgment. However, it is the truth. You can see, as a result of the First World War, both sides of the war had numerous casualties. So did World War II. The Nazi and the Allies lost their people on a par with each other. However, in this war, a bio-warfare, the Chinese communists didn't spend any money. Yet, they made the whole free world have hundreds of thousands of deaths and millions of people infected. So the call of the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs to congratulate Xi Jinping is to congratulate the successfulness of the genocide of the free world in the capitalist world. And the Chinese communist has not fired a single bullet. That is my point of view about this question. Now, for the second question. Recently, some Buddhist followers emailed me to ask something like this. According to the news, the U.S. government will grant $23,000 to any hospital if a patient died because of the coronavirus Wuhan, and they don't have enough medical insurance. Those who have medical insurance do not have to pay their deductible. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, and his administration will pay for all hospital expenses for those uninsured patients. Any uninsured patients admitted to the hospital due to coronavirus Wuhan, they have to stay in the ICU room to receive treatment and use a ventilator. After a few days of treatment, if they don't recover and die, the hospital will receive $23,000. This amount of money created a greed for the doctors and the hospitals. The reason this question was asked is because the majority of U.S. hospitals are run by private corporations and private companies. About 10% of hospitals are government-owned hospitals, such as Veterans Hospital. The other 90% are owned by corporations and private investors. These people do not hesitate to take advantage of this, and they report the untrue number of deaths. Thank you for asking me this question so that I can share my opinion. Please listen to my answer. You will see in the next few days the U.S. Department of Health, the nurse and the doctors in the United States Department of Health will investigate New York City hospitals for fraud. There were not 30 or 40,000 people who died in New York State Hospital. That was a false report. The actual number of casualty is about 20% less. It was recently discovered that the United States Health Department discovered after the investigation. In the United States, when a patient dies, they don't just cremate it. It is not like that. Any American patient who died in a hospital must have a medical record. The doctors in charge of treatment. In case the patient passed away, a group of doctors will have to confirm and sign the death certificate of that patient. In the medical report, the doctors will write down if the patient admitted with any symptoms such as cough, fever, common flu, or coronavirus Wuhan flu. And after the investigation is completed, the doctors will sign the death certificate stating the time and cause of death. There are steps and protocols that needs to be followed, not just randomly do whatever they want. The U.S. Health Department had an independent personnel to investigate and monitor New York hospital to ensure the $23,000 is not abused because death caused by other diseases does not qualify to be reimbursed. The Democratic Party, after they inquire who will be responsible for the medical bills of uninsured patients who die of coronavirus Wuhan, the federal government, under direction of President Trump, signed a bill to reimburse the hospitals for treating the coronavirus infected patient. If any uninsured patients who are infected with coronavirus and died because of coronavirus, the hospital will receive $23,000 in reimbursement. The U.S. Department of Health investigated and eventually found a testimony from a female doctor. How did they figure this out? When the doctors worked in the hospital, she confirmed that the person died from Wuhan coronavirus. And then the health department went to the morgue. They immediately tested the death. They immediately inspect the corpse by taking saliva and blood samples from the corpse. They then tested again and did not find any trace of Wuhan virus. Even though the death certificate declared that they died of Wuhan coronavirus, but 20% of the dead did not have the coronavirus and did not test positive for it. The health department stated an investigation and interviewed this doctor. The female doctor said that during this pandemic season, many people died of Wuhan coronavirus. Therefore, she had to state that the cause of death was because Wuhan coronavirus to ease the heartache of the family members. However, the investigation from the U.S. Health Department indicated that she received the director's hospital's order and the New York governor's order to do this illegal thing. Probably either today, tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow, all this news will be made public in the United States for the media and television network. This is an alarm that the death toll was not exactly the same as the hospitals have reported. So, some people see the benefits of people to die of coronavirus because the President of the United States will reimburse $23,000 for each person. This is a corruption in the U.S. government. There are doctors who are so greedy and they coordinate with the hospital board. They are implicitly supported by the Democratic Party through the administration of the governor of New York State. I know that there was a person who pleaded guilty. She is one of the doctors who work in New York Hospital. She has confirmed patients that have died of coronavirus Wuhan, but the autopsy conducted by the U.S. Department of Health indicated differently. The investigative doctors found some of the corpse which declared cause of death is Coronavirus Wuhan, but the test from the samples of their saliva and blood did not indicate any trace of that virus. This caused panic in the lives of New Yorkers and raises the panic. That is the political part of the Democratic governor in New York State, taking advantage of the panic of Americans to do politics. This is a crime that later all the corrupted doctors who work in the hospital, as well as whoever covered for this action, will be dragged into the U.S. Supreme Court. As I glance at the latest news I received this morning, I have noticed, and you probably will have noticed, there are a few webpages that have posted all B-52 bombers at Guam had taken off and returned to land. They were replaced by improved F-15 aircrafts, which can take off vertically like helicopters. What was the reason why the United States moved all B-52s off the island of Guam and replaced them with the improved F-15 fighters that can take off and land vertically like helicopters? I don't know really why the United States replaced their bombers with F-15 in Guam. That was the latest news. Yesterday, when I said that 80% of U.S. pharmaceutical companies have their headquarters in the United States, and 80% medications are made in China. If the Chinese communists ban these factories from exporting the medicine back to the United States, not only medication to treat coronavirus, but it also indicated drugs for high blood pressure and common medicine, the American people will be in trouble because there will be a medication shortage. So, the United States are very worried because many U.S. factories have not completely relocated back to the United States. To produce in the United States in the past, because of cheap labor, and China jointly the WTO, the United States took advantage of this and built their factories in China. Now, that if the Chinese communists use this to attack the United States will not be able to recoup in such a short amount of time. I want to say that 80% of the factories, including the production of masks and medical equipment imported by the United States and the United Kingdom, come from China. And China has poor quality and do not meet up to standard of care. Taiwan is the country that stand up and fill in the medical supply shortage. This is a shortage of medical supplies that the United States did not notice before the pandemic because selling a mask can only profit a few cents. Therefore, the United States did not invest in these factories. Instead, they moved these factories outside the United States and into China. Luckily, Taiwan is working very well to fill in the medical supply system instead of China. The solid proof is that President Tsai Ing-wen has provided 1 million masks for England to fight the coronavirus. Now, let's get back to the point where if the Chinese communists bullied the United States because 80% of the United States pharmaceutical factories are located in China. However, 80% of pork, chicken, rice, soybean are imported into China from the United States. That is 80% of the food source to feed the 1.4 billion Chinese people. Even Russia also had to import American agriculture. At the moment, there was a severe shortage of food in China. The Chinese already transferred money to buy billions of dollars of American food and agricultural products. The United States already received that money. But due to the coronavirus pandemic, all the import and exports are backed up. All the transportation vehicles are delayed, and the United States could not deliver on time. The United States can deliver the agricultural products in 14 to 15 days or 3 weeks. Because the deliveries are 3 weeks late, the Chinese people would rebel in the country. As a matter of fact, rebellion is already widespreading. From multiple sources on the internet, a number of Chinese people are rebelling at the borders with Russia. Russia has closed the borders to stop Chinese travel back and forth for some unknown reason. In return, Xi Jinping also ordered the closure of China's border, not allowing Russia to pass through. During the border closure, all Russians present in China were allowed to return to Russia, while the remaining tens of thousands of Chinese people who are stuck in Russia are not allowed to come back, per Xi Jinping's orders and direction. So, these Chinese people who have relatives stuck in Russia protest along the Russian-China borders. That is the confirmed source. So all the Chinese communists and the Chinese people are hungry. The Chinese army is not listening to Xi Jinping's orders in many military regions. My message were that the Chinese are sending warships and fleets to cause a reaction in the South China Sea, specifically in Malaysian waters, which the media have reported as a Malaysian explorer ship is being weighed by Xi Jinping's ship in the waters of Malaysia. Surely, Chinese ships will find an excuse to attack Malaysian naval ships from exploring the oil and gas in Malaysian territory in order to create a war with countries in Southeast Asia. With this war, Xi Jinping will bring all army generals together and stop them from thinking of a coup. Respectfully yours. I will try to update, but the most important news. Xi Jinping ordered the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to ask all countries in the world to congratulate him for his success in stopping the pandemic, which is really, literally a message to the world that Xi Jinping has been successful in destroying the people of free countries, including dozens of countries from the United States, Britain, France, Germany, Japan, Italy, and Spain, especially the European countries. Xi Jinping did not need to even waste a bullet. It is his pride to succeed in deploying warfare weapons to cause the imbalance in the world. Respectfully yours, I would like to see you again in the future and update the world situation due to the Coronavirus Wuhan. Farewell.